Yes, welcome to the Biz Communication Show. I'm your host, Bill Lampton, every week bringing you a top professional in the area of business communication so that you and I together can learn and can strengthen our company's sales, teamwork, motivation, strategies, and yes, profits as well. Today, it's a wonderful privilege to host Kare Anderson. I first heard of Kare Anderson about 20 years ago when I joined the National Speakers Association. As a newcomer, I, of course, wanted to know who were the top people that I should get to know so that I could learn from them. A friend of mine knew Kare Anderson from Sausalito, California, and said, "Yes, Bill, that is one of the people you need to get to know." And am I glad he said that? We've had a mutual conversation in many ways for that 2 decades. And she amazes me so much with her speaking, her writing, her creativity. And so let me say a couple of things here. We did, as I say, become acquainted through National Speakers Association. She's had a superlative career as a keynote speaker. In fact, her TED Talk has more than 2 million views. She's a former Emmy Award-winning journalist for NBC and the Wall Street Journal. She's a prolific author. She's written several books, many articles. And we're going to talk today about her most recent book, the title, Opportunity Makers Have Greater Impact, Meaning, and Joy with Others. That book already has 21 5-star reviews, and I'm proud to say that mine is one of them. Join me, please, in welcoming Kare Anderson. Hello, Kare.
Hello, it's so good to see you again.
Great to see you, and I did not mention that I constantly refer to you as the sage of Sausalito.
Which has caused other people to do that too now. Thank you very much.
That's a tagline you deserve. All right, let's talk about the book Opportunity Makers, your latest book. What prompted you to write this book? In other words, what did you want to achieve? What did you want readers to experience? What benefits do you want them to have? Why did you do this?
I think it's because I believed as you crystallize ideas that have given you joy and success in life, you sort of want to share them. And I realized I wanted more people to realize that some of the most powerful, joyful things that can happen to them at work in their life are to adopt a mutuality mindset. It's to look for finding sweet spots with other people so that you can address mutual interest and then see if you're on the right path seeking confirmation, because it's so rare that it happens. And then you have a way to strengthen that relationship through thick and thin as you grow the relationship. So I wanted some specific ways to show how to do it and why.
I've said, as I have studied your works across the years, that if I were to pick a theme song for you, the theme song would be, "I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony." I'm not a singer. I don't know if you're a singer, but anybody who's listening, go ahead and sing that song now if you would like to, because it characterizes what you teach, Kare. And I've always been fascinated by the fact that you constantly emphasize that there's great value when we're forming teams or we're forming alliances or we're forming partnerships. Don't just go after the people who are just like you, who dress like you, look like you, think like you, talk like you, write like you. You tell us the benefits of seeking people outside our own circle and our own likeness.
Well, I realized when you've picked people with different temperaments and talents and backgrounds, especially once you're really clear on your core life mission, and so you know what your talents are. Like, I have no sense of direction. I literally have a hole in the brain. So I actually met Secret Service people when I worked for Obama in his first campaign. because they were so bemused that I got lost so easily. They put a tack on my slacks so that when it went the wrong way when I was supposed to meet them, they could politely turn me around and tell me where to go. So I think some of our weaknesses can pull people towards us because they see they want to help. But going back to that core mission, I realize if you're collectively with people who have different temperaments and talents, and you've identified a sweet spot of shared interest, and you've gotten specific about it, then when you're looking at a problem or potential opportunity, you see more sides of the situation. It's like a book that I read about the power of people. Get people who are not experts in your area and ask them, what do you think we should do there? And they come up with some of the best and worst ideas. So we actually can learn and be bemused. So I believe having people with diverse talents and getting specific about something that matters to us means that we get to use our best talents together on things that are meaningful. And it also means, if they're mutuality minded, that they may come up with an idea that you hadn't even thought of and said, we might try this whole thing instead. I think it could have greater impact than the conversation we're talking about. And as we grow closer, we can say, well, actually, no, I really want to stick with this, or you're right. Being candid with people where you built trust, you really know that you have when you can politely disagree and listen closer. So those are things that I really found powerful when I was writing this book, and to give specific examples of it.
It's strange that you remind me of something that I heard many years ago in talking about ideas coming from an unexpected source. There's an old story going around. I don't know if it's fiction or fact, but I think it possibly happened, where there was a large truck that could not get under a bridge. And they had all kinds of people around there trying to decide what to do. And a little boy said, well, just let the air out of the tires.
Wow.
And that lowered the truck enough. And no matter what type of technical people they had around, nobody came up with an idea as simple as that. And sometimes I suppose, Kare, it's the people who don't have all these ingrained categories that they're stuck in. That's probably the advantage of getting people who may be even vastly unfamiliar with what we're talking about, because they come at it with such a fresh perspective. Am I hitting it right there?
You're hitting it absolutely right. And I was just getting goosebumps thinking about it. And because you used a specific example that's vivid, I just have to tell you, I believe so much in the power of specificity, because it comes from your self-clarity about what matters to you. Self-clarity means you project less on other people, so you actually can listen more closely to what's going on with them. And when you're specific, you stick something in their mind even if they didn't mean it to. And you're more credible, because a specific detail can prove a general conclusion, yet not the reverse. So I'll just tell you one that popped in my mind when you said that, very briefly. Can I do that?
Sure.
I was, since I have no sense of direction, I was bursting out of the elevator in a hotel, being late for the ballroom where I was to speak. And I was just so nervous. I burst out and I knocked this guy over. He sort of bang on the floor. I thought, oh my gosh. And he got up and he looked at me. He said, is that the way you initiate friendships? And I looked at him. I was cracked up laughing. And I said, this just knocks me out, because one of the things I believe in is being grounded. And if we know our hot buttons, we're less likely to be reactionary. And he said, well, that's interesting. Tell me more. And I said, that's another thing. When you ask follow-up questions, you prove you're interested in caring, and it builds a relationship. He said, aren't you late for something? And I said, oh, yes. Do you know where the main ballroom is? He said, let me walk you to it. So we're walking along. I was looking over at him. He was like 6'5". He was just tall. But I was just so interested. So he said, we had a connected conversation. And he said, you know, I think we can follow up and learn from each other. I said, I really believe that if you're interested. But when I came in the ballroom, everybody rushed towards him. And they said, oh my God, can I have an autograph? And I looked at him and he said, you don't know who I am, do you? I said, no. He says, I'm with the Golden State Warriors. I'm a basketball player. And they all looked at me with despair, like, you don't know, and you're going to be. So it was one of those things I remember, because there are these built-in lessons And it was a reinforcement to me of the power. Instead of reacting madly at someone, be open that there may have been a goof. Listen further. And I think of revenge too, because the sweetest revenge is when you're around someone and you give them other options. You may bring out their better side, not their worst side. And these are all lessons that I've been sticking in my mind since I started writing the book.
You
And he has,
remind me of your going into the ballroom. I had an incident where I was speaking at a wonderful for a wonderful organization in Cancun, Mexico. And I got there a day or two ahead and put in some vacation time as well. I remember putting my car keys down and forgetting where I had them. My sense of direction is about like yours. And I finally realized I had been sitting on a sofa a few minutes ago out in an open area. So I went to the sofa and there were two men sitting there. And I asked one of them, would you mind moving? I was sitting there and I have maybe my car keys are there. He moved, I got my car keys. And 2 days later, I realized he was the manager of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, and he introduced me as I spoke to his management team. So,
wow. Oh, the synchronicity in that. I love that story. Wow.
I guess what this tells us is there's an old saying about be on the lookout for strangers. You may meet angels unaware.
Oh, I like that.
And I like your incident so much because you talk in your book about humor, and you illustrate quite well in describing that incident the power of humor. If either one of you had said to the other one, you're clumsy, what are you doing? Why aren't you looking where you're going? Not only would you have had an abrupt ending to anything, but you would have missed so much in what did develop with you.
Yeah, well, what was wonderful is he emailed me 2 months later and said, I need to talk to you pretty quickly. And I said, okay. He said, this is off the record. Absolutely. And he'd since told me I could say that part of the story, just not say who he is. He said, I know that someday I won't be a basketball player anymore. And I know that there's an occupation I want to have open up to me, but I've never sort of looked for a job. Do you have any ideas how I can meet people? And it just dawned on me. I said, here's what, when you're being interviewed by the reporters and they're asking you, how did you do that play then? Make a metaphorical reference to the occupation. Say, well, it's just like a blah, blah, blah. In this case, car dealers. They would have done da, da, da. So you become not only more quotable, but when people hear you say something like that, the people you most want to reach are going to say, hey, did you hear about that? Well, the added bonus after him doing that is he said, my marriage is now better. My wife realizes she's better at coming up with the metaphors ahead of time than I am. And she feels like it's more of our having equal clout in our life. And it's also been rather fun for us. So a double thank you. And he said, no, what can I do for you? I said, my God kid, he's gone through a wretched time and he loves basketball. He said, of course, I'm going to give you a box seat. So these things evolve over time. That's my point in making that rather longer than I intended.
And that gets, it's okay. And don't let me interrupt. Did you have more to say on that, Kare? Don't let me interrupt.
One last thing, and this has just come back to me again and again. A healthy relationship isn't based on a quid pro quo, but an ebb and flow of mutual support over time. The people that should be most important in your life are ones that can offer you help even before you knew you needed or that they could have provided it. And it's like the Give and Take book by Adam Grant, who I admire. There's givers and takers, but it's the people who know that they want to have that ebb and flow in their life.
One of the things you just quoted an author and a book. One of the things in reading your books, and I, of course, have read your books and love them. And one of the things that I commented on in reviewing Opportunity Makers is that yours is not what I would call armchair philosophy. Every page practically of every article or every book, you are referring to other books. There may be people listening to us on podcast or watching our video who are not avid readers. And so I'd like for you to say something about what your reading habits are. I know you cover a diverse range of topics. Talk a little bit about your reading habits and what you recommend for others on that.
Clarity and specificity. Once I believe everybody should learn what their three intertwined talents are and how they come together. And that's quotability, connected behavior, mutuality for me. So I realized it's how to enable people to collaborate well and have more joy and success in their life. So that points me to all kinds of diverse people, some of whom don't think they're writing about collaboration per se. It may be some aspect like human behavior or whatever. So when you get more clear on that, then the books that you want to read just sort of pop into your mind. And the unexpected side benefit, and I'm so grateful for it now, is those people I cited, several of them have cited me in their speaking or in their writing or with their families. So giving people bragging rights where you shined a bright light on something you sincerely believe and it's specific, opportunities flow to you and you learn more faster. And we do a lot of increasing loneliness in our country. You get to collaborate on a meaningful level. And it's fun. Like there's so many people, a Secret Service agent I mentioned, since I have no sense of direction, several people, including the police chief in my little town, they know that I get forgetful about how to drive places. And so they joke and say, "Oh, Kare, you're driving too slow again. Pull over." But they do it jokingly because they know I'm driving safely, where we have a lot of fast bike drivers here.
Well, the Atlanta area where I live, if you drive slowly, you won't live very long. Somebody's going to pulverize you, no doubt about it.
Wow.
I think of all the things that you say in Opportunity Makers, the passage that I like most, and I want you to comment on, and this will be our last question. The one I like most is that many of us, when we meet somebody, we want to sense that they feel good about us. That's our purpose in meeting them. I love the way that you turn that around. And what you say is what's important is not how we make them feel about us, but how we make them feel about themselves. Elaborate on that briefly, please.
Sure. I think when someone is just feeling more alive or having more fun or learning something that lights them up, that glows in them. And then they project on us traits that we may or may not have because it's a natural, odd part of human behavior. So we bring out their better side and they tend to see our better side, projected and real. But the opposite is just even worse. When they don't like the way they feel when they're around us, they see in us traits that they don't like, some of which we may not actually have. So it's a double warning and blessing to see if they look happy and interested and engaged when you first are around them, especially.
Kare, as expected, fascinating, intriguing, entertaining, all those things you are, and certainly during this interview. I know that we have listeners and viewers who will want to contact you, so please give us your contact information now.
Well, I have a website called sayitbetter.com and a blog called Moving From Me to We. And because my first name's Danish, Kare Anderson, you can also look me up online somehow. But I want to just reverse it and say, from the second time I talked and wrote to you, you have a mutuality mindset. And I learned from you. And you also have a great voice that's low and has variability to it, so people listen longer. And I think that's one of the reasons that it's always been easy for us to talk about what's on our mind. Thank you.
And one day we're going to meet in person.
I would love that. Absolutely. Yes. And
So would I. Well, now that you've given your contact information, I'll give mine. Biz
Yes.
Communication Guy. So logically, my website is bizcommunicationguy.com. I invite you to go to my website, check my services for corporations and leaders, and also sign up for my newsletter and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Kare, any closing comments as we have a minute or so for you to do that?
I think the most precious thing in life is when you feel things flowing towards you that light you up. because we can't grab at things all the time, but just looking for synchronicity. When you get clear about what most matters to you, you're in a situation around other people, whatever, you can kind of notice some people that you're drawn to and you're aware of why. So you can say, it's because you brought up thus and such, it intrigued me. Can you tell me more about that? So I just offer that as an idea to other people. It's so interesting in our fast-paced world. And I love meeting people outdoors and doing walk talks because we get in sync. So that's the two things that have been lighting me up, especially since it stopped raining.
Well, we haven't stopped raining in Northeast Georgia. I live in Gainesville, Georgia, and I said the name of the town should be changed to Rainville because we've had so much. Thank you so much, Kare Anderson, for being with us. I encourage everyone to look at your contact information that you gave us, to buy your books, to read them, to digest them, and to put them into action. You will be enriched for doing that. Thanks so much for being with us, and thanks to all of you who have been with us on the video portion and the podcast. Be with us next week when, again, I will bring you a stimulating conversation with a widely recognized authority, a widely respected authority in communication. I'm Bill Lampton, the Biz Communication Guy.